Have you ever worked really hard and still felt like nobody noticed? Like no matter how much effort you put in, people only see what you're not doing well? Maybe you've watched other people move ahead while you're still struggling with the same problems. Maybe you've started wondering if you're just not good enough. I think most of us have felt that way at some point. The story you're about to hear isn't about the strongest animal in the desert. It's not about the fastest, smartest, or most talented one either. It's about a camel named Zaid. He was smaller than the others, weaker than the others, the kind of camel nobody expected much from. People laughed at him. They doubted him. Some thought he would never make it. But one day, when everything went wrong and everyone else was struggling to survive, that same weak camel became the reason an entire caravan made it home safely. So what turned the weakest camel in the desert into the one nobody would ever forget? Zaid wasn't born with any special advantage. He wasn't the biggest camel. He wasn't the strongest. Every time people compared him to the others, he came up short. The other camels carried heavier loads, walked farther distances, and earned everyone's respect. Zaid, on the other hand, became the easy target. People laughed at him almost every day. They said he was too weak for desert life. Some believed he would never survive out there. The hard part wasn't just being weaker. It was hearing those opinions over and over again until they started getting inside his head. Yet even with all that criticism, Zaid kept showing up. Every morning he got up early. He watched the older camels. He studied how they worked. He tried to do what they did. And most days, he failed. He stumbled. He got tired faster than everyone else. Sometimes he embarrassed himself in front of the whole group. But here's what stands out to me. He never stopped trying. He didn't suddenly become stronger overnight. He didn't prove everyone wrong in a week. He just kept coming back the next day. And sometimes that's more important than talent. A slow start doesn't mean a bad ending. The people who look weak today aren't always the ones who stay weak forever. What Zaid didn't know was that one conversation was about to change the way he saw himself completely. After another disappointing day, Zaid finally reached his limit. He walked away from the group and sat alone beside a rock as the sun started going down. He was exhausted, but not just physically. He was tired of failing, tired of trying so hard and feeling like nothing was changing. Honestly, that's a place many of us know very well. That's when Kareem showed up. Kareem was the oldest camel in the desert. He had survived storms, long journeys, and more hardships than anyone could count. Instead of criticizing Zaid, he simply sat beside him and listened. Then he said something that stayed with Zaid forever. He told him that the desert doesn't respect camels because they're fast. It respects them because they keep moving when everything around them is trying to make them stop. That lesson sounds simple, but it's powerful. Most people think success belongs to the most talented person in the room. Real life doesn't always work that way. Talent helps, sure, but consistency wins more often than people realize. The people who keep going through disappointment, rejection, and setbacks usually get farther than the people who rely only on natural ability. For the first time, Zaid stopped focusing on how weak he was. Instead, he focused on one thing he could control, taking the next step. And the choice he made after that surprised everyone. After talking with Kareem, Zaid made a decision. He stopped worrying about what everyone thought of him and focused on what he could do each day. So every morning, he got up and trained. When the other camels rested, he kept walking. When they laughed at him, he didn't argue. He didn't try to prove anything. He just stayed focused on taking another step. And when he fell, which happened more than once, he got back up and tried again. The difficult part is that nothing changed quickly. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Zaid was still smaller than the others. He was still slower. He was still the weakest camel in the group. If someone looked at him from the outside, they probably would have said all his effort was getting him nowhere. I think this is the point where most people give up, not when things are impossible, but when nothing seems to be happening. No results, no recognition, no sign that all the hard work is paying off. You start wondering if you're wasting your time. You start asking yourself if maybe everyone else was right about you. But Zaid kept going anyway, not because he was confident, not because he suddenly felt strong. He kept going because he had learned something important. Progress doesn't always show up right away. Sometimes the work is changing you long before you can see the results. And just when it seemed like all those quiet months meant nothing, a terrible storm appeared on the horizon. When the caravan finally set out on a dangerous journey across the desert, Zaid was given a chance to join. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for. At first, everything went smoothly. Then the weather changed. Dark clouds rolled in. The wind picked up. Before long, a massive sandstorm was tearing through the desert. People could barely see. The traders were frightened. Even the strongest camels began to panic. Some stopped moving altogether. Others became exhausted and collapsed under the pressure. Everything was chaos. But something unexpected happened. While everyone else was focused on the storm, Zaid focused on the next step. He didn't run. He didn't try to be a hero. He just kept moving forward, one small step at a time. The sand burned his eyes. His legs shook from exhaustion. Every part of him wanted to stop. Still, he kept going. That's what made the difference. Eventually, Zaid spotted a group of rocks in the distance, a place where the caravan could take shelter. He called out, and the others followed him. Because of that one decision to keep moving when everyone else wanted to quit, the entire caravan survived the night. There's a lesson in that. Real strength isn't about never feeling afraid. It's not about never struggling. And it's definitely not about being the most powerful person in the room. Real strength shows up when life hits you hard and you keep moving anyway, even slowly, even imperfectly, even when nobody knows how hard it is. For the first time, people stopped seeing Zaid as the weak camel. They saw him for who he really was. But the hardest test of his life was still waiting ahead. The storm was over, but the journey wasn't. On the way back home, the caravan ran into another problem. Their water supply was running dangerously low. Everyone knew what that meant. If they didn't make it back soon, survival would become a real concern. The traders started looking for ways to make the trip easier. They decided to leave behind some of the extra bags. Less weight meant less energy spent. It was the smart thing to do. Then something surprising happened. Without being asked, Zaid walked over to the remaining bags and knelt down. He wanted to carry more. The people around him couldn't believe it. This was the same camel they once called weak, the same one they thought wouldn't survive the desert. Yet here he was, volunteering to take on an even heavier burden. At first, he managed. But as the hours passed, the weight became brutal. The sun felt hotter, the road felt longer. Every step hurt. At one point, his knees nearly gave out beneath him. He was exhausted. He wanted to stop. He wanted to rest. A voice inside him kept saying, "You've done enough. Let someone else carry it." But then he looked around. He saw the traders struggling to keep going. He saw the other camels fighting through the same heat and exhaustion. Everyone was carrying something heavy, and that's when something clicked. Zaid realized that strength isn't about living without pain. Nobody gets that version of life. Every person carries something. Stress, loss, fear, disappointment, responsibility. The difference is what we do with it. Real strength is carrying the weight and continuing anyway. It's getting up when you're tired, showing up when you don't feel motivated, taking another step when nobody would blame you for quitting. So Zaid stood back up. One step, then another, then another. And eventually, the caravan made it home safely. But years later, people still talked about Zaid. The question is, what exactly made him so unforgettable? When the caravan finally returned to the village, everything had changed. The people who once laughed at Zaid weren't laughing anymore. The camel they had underestimated had helped save them more than once. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was born special, but because when things got difficult, he refused to stop moving. That evening, Karim found Zaid again. This time, there was no sadness in Zaid's eyes, no frustration, no need to prove himself. Karim looked at him and shared one final lesson. He said, "The desert doesn't care who started stronger. It only remembers who refused to quit." Honestly, that's true far beyond this story. Most people never remember who had the easiest beginning. They remember the people who kept going through hard times, the people who stayed standing after being knocked down, the people who kept showing up when nobody was watching. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to move faster than everyone else. You just have to keep going. Sometimes that's enough to change your entire life. So if you're feeling tired today, think about Zaid. If you feel like you're falling behind, think about Zaid. If you're working hard and nobody seems to notice, think about Zaid. There were many days when he couldn't see the results of his effort. Many days when people doubted him. Many days when quitting would have been easier. But he kept going. And that's why people remembered him. Maybe your progress isn't obvious yet. Maybe the people around you don't see how hard you're trying. That's okay. Every step you take today is building the person you'll become tomorrow. One day, the struggle you're fighting right now may become the very thing that inspires someone else. If this story gave you a little encouragement today, make sure to subscribe and join us here at Quiet Growth Lab. We're building a community for people who want to grow a little stronger, a little wiser, and a little more resilient every day. And before you go, thank you for spending these minutes with us. I truly appreciate your time. Keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself. And I'll see you in the next story here on Quiet Growth Lab.